Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today in this video we are going to learn about string manipulation. This would be our agenda for today. We are going to start with what exactly is a data manipulation, why it is important, and on the left hand side you see all the string functions. That is what we are going to cover today. To upper, to lower, count, trim, replace, split, concat, and also we are going to see how you can utilize the AI features for doing the string manipulation. In case you are someone who is struggling to get ahead with the data manipulation and you are facing difficulty with string manipulation, you can watch this video in a step-by-step manner. Not only this, I would recommend you to just open your UiPath Studio and follow along this tutorial. So at the end of this video, you also have a clear understanding of all these topics. There is no separate input or output file which you would require to follow along this video. All you require is your UiPath Studio, some set of activities and the default values, right? So with that, you can just start your string manipulation journey with this video. In case you are coming to the channel for the first time and you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel to get the next videos in the series. Having said that, let's get started. First thing first, right? Why do I even require a data manipulation? So whenever we are working as an RPA developer, okay, always the data which I require would not be in the same format which the business is providing me or which the automation is providing me. So take a simple example. I want to have ABCD in lowercase and the business is providing me ABCD in the uppercase. So before I use the data between one application to other application, I need to make sure that the data is formatted in a way that the other application requires, right? So first thing first is, why do I require data manipulation? Because sometimes we have applications, sometimes we have automations where we have to make sure that the data is in the same format which the application is expecting. It can be something like you read a data from an Excel, it has 5 columns. Now, when you have to add the data into a new application, out of the 5 columns, you require only 3 columns. Now, as a developer, you should be knowing that how do I remove 2 columns. The other example could be you have a list, that list is having 100 items. Now, you have to iterate all the list one by one and check something in that list. And then accordingly, you have to manipulate the list. So that's also an example of data manipulation. It can be with the dictionary, it can be with the list, it can be with the string. Sometimes we also have to convert data from one data type to the other data type. Right? So all of these things, whichever we are talking, is an example of data manipulation. And that is why I always say that a little knowledge of VB.NET, C#, Java, any programming language is always going to help you in learning these concepts. Okay. So I'm in my UiPath Studio, and the first thing which we are going to learn today is the string manipulation. I'll go here and I'll create a new sequence. I'll call this sequence as string manipulation. Okay. So whenever I have to store something in a sequence of character, that is called a string, right? But not always I would have the data which I require. So first thing first is, you should know how do I create a string. I'll go to the variables. Okay. I'll go here and let's create a string variable. I'll call it str underscore variable 1, right? So that is just a string variable. And here the variable types, these are all the different variable types you can have in UiPath, right? Old concepts already discussed, not going here. So we are going to create it as a string variable, right? Now I'll take an assign activity, and that is what we are going to see today is functions, right? What are the different functions which are available? So let's say whenever I pass a string variable in UiPath, the first thing first you should remember is that it should be always in the double quotes. Okay. If I write something like this, UiPath is a good technology, it does not work here, right? Because it says that it's not working, it's not expected. String would be always in double quotes like this. Now anything you put between here would be a string. Okay, so we are just going to pass a string. Let's say we are learning data manipulation. So this is a string which is having a value which is called a str variable, and this is having a value. Okay, now a string has a lot of functions. To get started with, let's start with the basic one. So for example, today I have a requirement where I want to convert all of these into a lowercase, right? Uppercase, lowercase. So this is a capital A and this is a small a. Now why do I want to do that? Let's say I have an application. That application is, or let's say take another example, right? Let's say I have to insert a data into an application, and that application says that, hey, the data, all the data should be in small letters, or other way, the application says that all the data should be in the capital letter. But now this is your input. How do you convert it, right? So what you can do is you can always go here and then you take a new assign activity. Okay, so this is my str variable one, and I'll create a new variable which is called str underscore output, and here it's a string, right? It's str underscore output. What is the output I want? I want to convert this everything in a lowercase. So if I go to this one here, I can just write here what is my variable, which was this variable dot. I want to convert everything into the lowers. So in your UiPath Studio, whenever you put a dot, you will get all the functions. Because str variable was a string variable, you would get all the different functions which are available for string. Contains, copy, count, element at, equals, right? All these functions are available, and if I just put a 2, you will get I have something which is called 2 upper and 2 lower, right? Now what is important for us as an RPA developer is that you should be able to understand what is coming in this list, right? So when I go to the 2 lower, it says that, hey, this is a 2 lower which is a function of this thing. Sorry, this one. Whenever I go to this 2 lower, it says that this is a function. Okay, and whatever you see at the last, right, culture as culture info, and then it says as string, which means that if you use this function, the output would be a string. That is what these functions tell you. Whatever you see after as, this means that when you do this function, the output will be a string. Okay, so I just use a function which is called toLower, and I just say save it. Now what would happen when I just go here and I use an activity called write line activity, which will just print the output. I can just print this here, which is called the str output, and let's save this, go here and run the file. Okay, so what we have done is we had an input which was from a different source. We have to pass that to a different source, and we had a requirement to change the order, so we changed it. And now if I just go to the output, you could see that we are learning data manipulation. Everything is in small letters now, right? Now one other thing here, a lot of times the RPA developer, what do they do is, if I just, instead of creating this input and output variable, if you directly go here and you just take a new write line, I'll delete, let's say I'll comment this, control D, right? The tool over activity I have commented. I had this input, right? And please see, this is important. We had this input and we wanted something in the output, right? A lot of time the RP developer, what they do is they know that yes, this is a variable. I can always go here and I can put dot tool over. So what that will happen is it will directly convert this variable into tool over. Go here and I can say run the file. You will exactly get the same output. So there is no need of creating the output variable. But that again depends on your situation, depending on what kind of automation you are writing. See the same output. Now let's say after this one, I again need the same variable. So in UiPath, it is always recommended to have one variable only for one purpose. So let's say in the upcoming automation part, you require this input, right? So rather, I would like to take a new variable, put the lower into that, and then every time I have to do to lower, I would just like to use this variable str output instead of converting it every time. But let's say it is only once, you can just use directly the string variable, put a to lower, and it should give you the lower one, right? Similarly, like to lower, if I want to make everything in the uppercase, I can just say to upper, right? So that is the variable, and I say to upper and save this, go here, run the file. You would see that now it will get converted to an uppercase where all the complete string, whatever you have mentioned, right? If I go to the output, you would see that we are learning data manipulation is now in uppercase, right? So these are the two functions which will help you to do it, right? Now, this was a way which an traditional developer, or I would say the people who are coming from a .NET background used to do it, right? With the new addition in UiPath, okay, you guys should know that UiPath has also given us some string manipulation activities. So if you go to the activities now, and if you search for string, you have in the programming, you have something which is called the string, right? So you just go to install programming. Let me just show it to you here. Uh, you go to installed, you go to the formatting, and you can see here a lot of the things are directly given by UiPath for you. For example, this changing of the case, right? So now let's say I have to change it to small, lower, upper, right? One way is I always have to know what is the string functions. The other way is if you are using, let's say, the latest addition, so you have all this activity directly available for you here. So you don't have to worry about writing those two lower, two upper, right? But let's say you are working for a client or a customer where you don't know, where you don't have this activity, then it becomes a challenge, right? And always I would again repeat, it is always recommended to have a little bit of background, right? So now this is a new activity which is called change case. This expect you what is the source text. So my source text was str underscore variable one, right? Now here you can see lowercase, uppercase, capitalize each word, all of that can be done here, right? Self-explanatory. If you want everything in the lowercase, uppercase, sentence case, capitalize each word, all of that you can do here like this, right? And if you go to the properties, where do you want the updated text, right? You just create a new variable, let's say str output, and if I just go here and now use a write line activity, okay, and like this, and here I say str output. So I have not used the function now, right? Dot to lower, dot to upper, right? I'm just using this activity, change case activity, which is available inside UiPath. And now UiPath is adding activities into the UiPath Studio for the RPA developer to make it easy, right? But again, if you know the core, right? If you know the basic functions, it would be easy for you, right? One other good part of all these UiPath activities is that in case you want to test, right? And every time you don't want to run the automation, you can directly pass the data here in the source text, right? So let's say I have a source text, something like this, right? Mukesh Kala is a UiPath trainer, right? I just wrote it here, right? Now it's a string, so I'll put it in double quotes. Okay. Now I want to see how the output will become when I change here uppercase or the lowercase. So I can just go here and I say lowercase and I can see directly the output here. Uppercase, output. Capitalize each word, output. Sentence case, output, right? So these activities has this benefit, right? Where you don't have to run it, and but this does not work with the variables, right? If you provide the variable here, str variable one, then it does not work, right? Then preview is not available for expression, but in case you want to test something, you can directly come here and test it, right? So this was an activity which was called change case, does the exactly the same work which we used to do, right? Okay. Now, let me tell you a different scenario. So for example, I am writing an automation. Okay. So this was about cases, right? So uppercase, lowercase. I hope it makes sense. Let's say I have a different automation now where I have an application, and that application says that the name of the, let's not take a name. So let's say the username. Okay. The username should be 6 characters. I am writing an automation. I have to put key in the username. There is an automation who is taking data from some application, doing something somewhere else, right? Now the catch here is that application says that, hey, your username should be of 6 characters. If it is more than 6 characters, throw a business exception, right? Now, my user can have username like this, Mukesh, which is a valid. Somebody like this, Mukesh123, not valid, right? Somebody like CLEMENT Clement 1234, again not valid. Somebody write UiPath, it is a valid, right? So now if you see here, if all these can come, and for all these requirements I have to raise a business exception. Now that's where you need to know an additional functions of string, and the function which we are going to discuss is count. Okay, what exactly is a count? So I'll delete this and I'll delete this as well. Okay, now I have a string variable. We'll use this same variable str variable1, and we will pass the username here such as UiPath, and I'll save this. Now done. Now what we want to do is we have a condition that we want to check it should be of 6 characters, right? It should be of 6 character. I have to check. So definitely I'm going to use an if activity. So I'll use an if activity here, and here we have to check, right? If and else, not going into there. I hope you guys understand it. So in here I have to write an condition. I have to check how many characters are there. So I'll write an expression, I'll expand it, and I'll simply write here whatever variable you have, str variable1 dot count. See, as soon as I write dot count, now if you guys read this complete line, function enumerable something something, focus on the last word which says as integer. It means that it is telling me, Mukesh, if you are going to use this function which is called count, I am going to give you an integer, and that will give me then integer, right? So before using the, let's say this, if I want to just see, right? So what I can do is I can just use a write line activity. Okay, let's see what does it this activity gives, right? Before using in the if. So I just go here and I say str variable1 dot count. The same, as you can see, it says as integer. That means the output of this would be an integer, right? And why it is giving an error? Because it says that write line wants you to have an string and you are passing a integer, right? So this is also you guys should understand now, right? When I just write str variable1, this works with the write line because write line expects an string variable. So string variable, this was string, no issue. As soon as I write dot count here, dot count is giving you an integer. That's fine. It's giving me an integer and that's what I need. But now write line is telling me that, hey, I wanted to have an integer. I wanted to have a string and you are giving me an integer. So I again put a dot to string. What does this mean? I am telling UiPath that, see, this is a string variable. I want to get the count. I understand that this is going to give me an integer, but I want you to convert that to a string and then show in the write line, right? So toString is also a function to convert anything to a string. Okay, so I'll go here and I'll say run the file, and in the output we should see what is the count of, I would say, what is the character count here, right? So if I go to the output, you would see here it is showing as 6. UiPath 6, PAUIPATH 1 2 3 4 5 6. right? Now one additional method which you guys have learned here is dot to string, right? In case you want to convert anything to a string, you can use dot to string. This also implies that, let's say I have a integer variable. Okay, let's make it easy, right? Let's say I have a phone number variable, and the phone number is a string, right? Let's say 1 2 3 4 5 6, something like this. I have this phone number here. Okay, I think it, okay, so that range, integer has a range. As soon as you pass the range, it becomes out of the range, right? We'll talk about range in a little moment. So I have an integer variable. This is my number with me. Now, for example, you have to type this into some application. Now type into activity, right? Now you have to type this into some application. Now type into activity you are going to use, right? So I'll drag and drop the type into. If you see, it says that pass here the text. The input here is a text. Now if I just try to pass the phone number here, it won't work, because it is asking me that Mukesh, you have to give me a string and your phone number is an integer, and that's why this error. A lot of the times you guys might have faced this error, right? As a developer, it is also important for us to understand the errors. Fixing is a different thing, right? Once you understand the error, go to Google, find the solution. But the step one is to understand the error. Now, if you read this error properly, it says that implicit conversion from string from integer to string. It says that the selected value is incompatible. That's because it's type into and it is expecting a string. Then it says that why it is incompatible, because integer to string, because integer to string. So then I want to convert it to string. I just put here dot to string, and now it should be able to type, right? So dot to string is a thing which applies whenever you have a number and you want to convert it to this one, right? So that's why we have used this dot to string here whenever you want to convert anything to a string. Coming back to our use case now. So we converted this and we got the 6, right? So now I understand that there we have a 6, the count is 6. Now how do I use it in the if condition? I simply can use an if condition, and I say if whatever count I have, which is this one, let me just put it in this mode. If str variable dot count, right? Now I have checked that whenever I use dot count, it gives me 6. If it is greater than or less than, right? Greater than, less than, that's what our condition. If my count is less than 7, right, then it is 6, or you can say anything, right? So if it is less than 7, I am okay to put it in the variable, right? So I can just go and do a save here. And now what do you want to do? If it is less than 7, then I just say I want to log a message. Okay, here I just want to log a message, and I say that I'll put it as an info level log, and I say that valid. It's a valid username, right? And in case if it is not proper, I want to generate a business exception, I will use a rethrow activity, right? Exception handling we have already discussed in details. You'll put all those logic here, but I'll say that this is an error and this is not a valid username, right? So now UiPath is a valid. So if I just run this automation, run the file, what should happen? It will take the variable. First, we have also used the dot to string as a function, right? Which was not required anyways, but so here, if you see, first it says 6 and then it says valid. Now, if I just go here and I put a different username, let's say, okay, I'll save this, go here, run the file, okay, and now it should come as invalid, right? Because now the length of the string would be more. We have also printed it's 10 and that's why it is not a valid, right? This is a simple example, but you can think and imagine it as a enterprise application where you have to validate, do the counting, right? So the function is simple. All you have to know is these conditions, which function when to use. Okay, so this was a function which was called count. Okay, now let me show you one interesting stuff, right? I go here and this is my username now. What do you guys think? Is it a valid or it is invalid? I have put RPA and I have put, let's say, 6-7 spaces. What do you guys think? Let's try to see the reason. If I go here and I say run the file, because 16 white spaces are also the characters. Okay, but again in UiPath, whenever we are reading the data, right? Let's say I read this data using screen scraping, right? We have an activity called get text. We have the data scraping. Now when UiPath robot extract data, scrapes the data, sometime it gets a lot of spaces. And this one is having a lot of spaces. So some fine day you might have 2 spaces, sometime you have 3 spaces, sometime you have 5 spaces. It's a challenge for me, right? It's breaking my use case. UiPath string has a function to take care of the extra spaces. The name of the function is trim. Trim. How does it work? Let's see that in action, right? So first here, this was the variable which is having this RPA. Okay. After this, we printed the count and we saw the count is 16. Okay. What I'll do is to make it understand you better, I'll take one more assign activity. Okay. And here I'll say that in the output variable, whatever you have in the string variable, put a dot. Okay, I'll just expand it for you. I'll just put a dot and then I'll say trim. Okay, so I'll just say trim. Now as soon as I write trim, please notice as string at the end, it says as string, that the output would be a string. Okay, save this. And now I again want to count how many characters you have in the, I'll control C, control V here. Now I'll again check how many characters I have in the str output, right? Simple automation. First I have this RPA which is having a lot of spaces, count the actual, then do the trim, save it in the output and then print the output, right? This if condition will disable for a moment. Okay, let's save this, go here and run the file. Now what is happening? We have instructed the robot to trim the spaces, right? Let's see if it is working. You don't have to trust me. Okay, so if you go to the output, it says that 17 and 3. It means that it has got 14 spaces. It removed that and the final count is 3, which is R, P and A. Now once you have that, in your if condition now, instead of using the str variable, I can always use the variable which is having the trimmed output, which is the str output. I can save this, go here, run the file, right? So previously when I run this same automation, I got then automation as invalid. So now if you see, it says valid 17, 3 and 2, right? Now if you notice here, the input was the same. I didn't change the input. This activity is also the same. What I just introduced, this is same, this is same. I just introduced one little thing which was called trim, right? So trim removes the spaces. Okay, now so same like trim, right? sometime I might have a requirement, okay, where I only want to trim the string. So let's say this is my string, right? RPA 1, 2, 2 spaces in the beginning, and then at the end I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now my requirement is I want to only trim the starting. I want these extra spaces. I only want to trim the beginning. Or let's say sometime you only want to trim the last. That's why when you go to this trim function and you put a dot, when I use the trim, it trims both the starting and the end extra spaces. But if I say trim start, it will only trim the starting spaces. If I want to trim the last, only the ending part of it, then I will say trim the end, right? To understand this, let's say I just use a trim start here. Okay, instead of trim, now I just do a trim start. Okay, and if you see here, I do not have any spaces. I just have, let's say, one space here. 1, 2. I'll just put two spaces. Okay, I have put two spaces here. And now here I am saying that you just trim the start. So let's go here and say run the file. And now if you see, previously the count was 19. We remove the starting to, so it became 17, and still invalid because it didn't remove this additional one, right? That's why it's trim start. If you only want to do the trim and, you just go here and update it to dot trim end, sorry, dot trim end. And if you want to remove it from both the side, we just use dot trim. Okay, it will remove from both the sides. Okay, now so if we try to understand it with the help of scenarios, it would be easy for us to understand, right? Now let's go to the other one, right? So we have seen two upper, two lower, we have seen the length, we have seen the dot to string, we have seen the count. Okay, now the next one is something which is an important and you might require it a lot of times, right? So for example, I am working for a company whose name was ABC Enterprises, right? So let's say I have this company whose name is ABC Enterprises, and this was the input, right? ABC Enterprises is located in Delhi, India, right? So this was a string, this was some text which I got read it from somewhere, right? Now the company renamed the ABC Enterprise to, let's say, XYZ Enterprise, and this is my string. Now what I have to do is I have to make sure that everywhere wherever I am using the ABC Enterprise, it should be now XYZ Enterprise, right? How do we do that? Let's try to see that, right? So I'll use this same, copy it, okay, and this count and all we'll keep it, we might need it for the next one. So I'll go here and create a new one which is called functions. Create, okay, and in UiPath, by the way, you can hard code the values here also, right? Like this, default values. Okay, so now this is the default value, which is ABC Enterprise is located in the Delhi, India, right? So you can hard code the value. Now I take an assign activity, okay, and this was the str input, and here I want to again pass the same value. Please remember, whenever you hard code it, let's say I have hard coded it with something like hard coded value. Now if I try to print the value here, if I try to print the str input here, okay, before I go to the replace one, right, I just want to tell you this one. Whenever you hard code values in string here, and whenever you use something and you manipulate the value, always the manipulated value will take the preference, right? So if I print this right line, I'll always get ABC Enterprise is located in New Delhi. This value would be overridden, right? After this, if I just again do a copy paste, and here I just say new string, the output would be a new string here, right? So this is like a container. You can think like str input is a container. In that container, first you have put this value which is hard coded. As soon as you put this value, hard coded is lost, you have this value. Now as soon as you allowed with this, you have this value, right? So that is why it is always recommended whenever you want to have different variables, different type of variables, different variances of data, create new variables. If you keep using the same variables, the value get override. Okay, please remember that. Coming back to our use case, so I had this one str input which has this value, and now I wanted to change it, the name of the company, from ABC to XYZ, right? In Notepad, or we just do a control F, we do a copy and replace, right? The same thing happens in here also. I can take an output variable, do that in that, right? Take an output variable. However, you can always directly do it in the string functions as well. So I'll just take the input variable. I want to replace, so I'll put a dot, and then I'll just write here replace. Now see this syntax, right? As soon as I put here dot replace, this is the syntax you should understand, right? It says function string dot replace. So it says that string you are using, you have a replace function. You have to, in the bracket, see it is a bracket. So it is asking me that you need to put a bracket. Then you need to provide the old value as string, which means that the old value should be a string. Then you need to put a comma, then you need to put the new value as string, and then you have something which is called ignore case, which means that do you want to take care of the capital A small a, that is in boolean, and this in for as string, which means that it is telling me that output of this complete thing would be a string, right? So that is how you read this function. I'll again repeat, function string dot replace. So this dot replace is this one which I have used. Okay, you need to put a bracket, then you need to provide old value as string, put a comma, new value as string. Okay, we'll just use only this. So as we have seen, dot replace, small r will also work, right? So put a bracket, and see now it will also guiding you. If you see, as soon as I put a bracket here, it has highlighted that old value as string in bold. It is telling me that now you provide the old value as a string. And how do I present string? In double quotes, A, B, C. After that, it is telling me put a comma. See, after old value as string, you see a comma. So I just go here and I put a comma. Then automatically highlighted now is guiding you that put the new value also as string. So I go here and I say X, Y, Z. Okay. And then it says close the bracket. So bracket is closed. I'll just go and save this. Directly printing the output, can go here and I say run the file. Okay, now let's go to the output. Now the company name is replaced to XYZ Enterprises is located in New Delhi, right? Where would be the scenarios you are going to use it, right? So let's say you read a data from a PDF. It was a scanned PDF. Some of the data is misplaced. It's not working properly. You read a data from an email, you put it in a string variable. Now you want to replace some information, you can use the dot replace. Sometime whenever you read the data, you might have some additional extra characters, right? So let's say in my string I have read, and when the UiPath robot or something read it, it got some additional characters like this. Okay, or maybe it got some additional character. Let's take only one, right? Let's say it get an additional character of ampersand. Okay, so ABC Enterprise is located in this, and I got this extra characters which I want to remove, right? I can use the same string function, and whatever you want to remove, right, you have to provide that in here. I want to remove this. Now the question arises, what do you want to replace it with? Now if I don't provide anything here, this function is giving me an error saying that, hey, you need to provide me the old new value, right? But I don't have a new value. So you can simply put double quotes, nothing. Save this, go here, run the file. So it will replace that, but it will not put anything, right? You don't need to put anything. You just put the double bracket and it will just take care of that extra thing, right? Now, one important thing here is that you can also use special characters here, including space. Let's say I want to replace this with space, you can do that also, and it will replace that with a space, right? Because as we have seen, space is also counted, right? So this was your function which is called the replace function. Okay, now uh, after this one, let's say you have something where you have to, let's take a define a different use case. Okay, so now I read a data from a application and I got the name of all the, I would say all the username, I got it in a single string, right? So let's say I got all the username in a single string like this. Okay, I'll just use the name from the chat. Okay, so all these username I have got from the string, right? So these were all the username and I have to feed this into an application, right? So what I have got is all the users name I have got into this variable like this. Okay, Mukesh, Daniel, Stephen, Calvin, Emma, right? All these I have got into this one. But if I have to use a write line activity, or if I have to put it into some application, if I pass str input, what would happen? It will pass this complete into as a single, right? However, my requirement is this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, and this is 5, right? This is now in a single string. If I have to split it, I need how many string? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need 5 string out of 1 string. That means if you see technically, I have to split this 1 string into multiple string. That's where the split functionality would come in picture. But before that, you have to ask yourself as technically, right? So this is my input, which is in a string variable. So I'll put it in double quotes like this. So you see that this is a single string variable. Now if I split it, the output would be like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strings, and all of them I want as a different string. Trim and all is absolutely fine, right? That all we can do. But now what kind of variable I would be using to store all these records, right? So this is a string. I want to split it into 5 different strings. Now, what kind of variable would be able to store data of the same type? Can anybody tell me? If you don't know it, that's also fine, right? So what kind of variable I can use to store all this text which is highlighted, and these are all different string. When you use this thing, you are going to get array, right? That's why again it is important to understand a little bit of .NET, right? So now the correct answer for this would be an array, because what is an array? Array is a fixed size sequence collection of elements having the same data type and the same size, right? So these are all having the same data types. So that's why I am going to use something which is called array, right? Now, if this was my input variable, okay, now if I just try to see what exactly is that split function, right? So if you go here, open this, this is my str input variable, which is having all the users name. So as soon as I put a dot split, whenever I use a dot split, right, you can directly use the internet and find what is the output of the split, and Microsoft will give you all the additional details as well, right? So I go here and I say dot split. Okay, now again the same concept. If I put a bracket, now guys, one thing whenever you are using the string function you should remember is that this you see here 1 of 10, right? 1 of 10. It says me that the split function have 10 different varieties. Okay, the split function has 10 different varieties, which you can just click on these buttons. Sorry. Yeah, I am pressing the down arrow in my keyboard and it is showing me all the 10 different variances. Okay, it says that you can use this function dot split. You can provide the character and get a string array. You can provide the separator as an array. You can also provide the count as an integer. All these are the 10 different varieties, and if I talk it technically, these are all the overloaded methods of the string. So it is telling you that you have 10 different ways of using the split functionalities. Now, if you want to better understand, the best place for is the Microsoft, right? Like it, hate it, Microsoft website has all the details, right? So here you see all these are the same thing which are coming when you click on those 1 of 10, right? So it says that if you put dot split, I am going to give you the character array, split a character into substring based on the delimiting characters. All these are the different and these are the examples. If you click on that, it will also showing you the example of how do you use it. The only thing as a developer you should know is how do I convert this into my UiPath syntax, right? And that's what I'm there for, right? So it says that this is going to use a string array and you have to only provide the separator as a character. Okay, so let's go to UiPath and try to understand it, right? It should be a character array. So I go here into the UiPath. Let's try to use the very basic one, but you should understand that there are 10 variances of the split functions. Dot split, I put a this, then it says provide me a character array. Character array is nothing but a string. In the double quotes, you can tell how you want to split it. How do you want to split it? So if you see here, all of this is by a space. So in the double quotes, I say that split it by a single character space. Now this is a single character, that's why I am writing here C. Okay, and then I want to output it as you can get it in a to array, you can get it in a list. So I write here dot to, just to show you guys, this would be the syntax. I know this is a little bit tricky, but let me try to explain it again. Dot split has 10 different functions, right? My requirement was I want to split it only by a space, and space is a single character. So that's why what I have got here is whatever you have in the input, split it by a space. What is a space? Is a single character. That's why I have put this C here, indicating it's a character. Then dot to array, because I want the output in an array. Okay, you can put it in any collection as well, right? So I can just put it in a to array. Now the same concept, right? Right line is saying me you are converting it to array, and right line is an activity which expects only string. So you cannot put a string array into a string. That's why it is giving an error, right? So the correct way for that is, you have, when you split it and you are trying to convert it into an array, you need to have a string array. So I'll go to the variables and I'll create something which is called string array. How do you create an array? You go here, variable types, and here you select array of what? Array of string. Say okay. Array of string is created. Okay. Now I'll just go here, activities, take assign activity, and now the same thing would work. In the string array, which is a string array variable, I have this string input which is having all these data string, right? I will write an expression, str input dot, I want to split, I put a bracket, it says me how do you want to split. I want to split it by space. It's a single character, put a C, and the output is going to be an array. So dot to array. And if I say save, now there is no error. Now if I just go and use this string array, it would have all those elements separated. To test this, now it is a collection, so I have to iterate it. So I am going to use for each, right? Back to the basics, right? For each. Why we are using for each? Now this all are individual elements, 1 2 3 4 5. So I can go here. It says that where is your collection? My collection is string array. Okay, and then it says that I will iterate all your elements and I'll provide you in the current array. What do you want to do with the current array? I just want to print the current array. Whatever elements I have, just print it one by one here. I'll save this, go here, run the file. Okay, and now I'll show you how you can, I would say, if I go to the output now, you would see Mukesh, Daniel, Stephen, Calvin, Emma, all are now separate strings for you. Okay, now one thing here, let's say tomorrow it gets a extra spaces. I am telling it to split by spaces. Save this, go here, run the file, right? Instead of one spaces, now I got a lot of spaces. Automation is starting, running. I go to output and I can see that all these spaces are again coming here. See? However, I only wanted strings, right? Now, how can I fix this? You understood the problem? I told it to split by space. It's split by space and then it says that, hey, these are also the characters for you, right? Now, that's where you can write a logic here. In the output, all of this is coming one by one, right? In which variable? In the current item variable. Inside the body, let's try to write a simple logic, right? Complex one, you guys can figure it out. Simple logic where I say that if the current item, if the current item is a space, right? Now the next function I'm going to teach you is how do you check whether it is a space or not, right? That was the whole purpose of this, right? So in UiPath or in .NET, you have functions which is called, which I have taught in one of the previous sessions also, right? How do you check whether a variable is null or white space, right? So you just go here, you can say here string dot is, there are two functions. is null or empty, and then you have one more function which is null or white space. Okay, so it says that string has two functions, is null or empty and is null or white space, which gives you a boolean variable as an output. Boolean is having a value of true and false. So it says that if your variable is null or empty, I am going to give you true. If it is a white, null or white space, I am again going to give you a true. So I am saying it, check my variable for null or empty. Which variable? Current item, right? Because that is what it is looping in. Check whether that variable is null or empty, or also check whether that variable is a white space or not, right? It's a simple space. Okay, so this is a condition, guys. These are the two functions which are available in string, null or empty, to make sure to check that whether the string is null or empty. This will give a boolean variable. Null or white space to check whether the string is having a white space or not. So I am telling UiPath that check whether it is empty or white space. If any of those condition is true, if it is null or if it is white space, right? Don't do anything, right? Don't do anything. You can just write here ignore or write some log messages, and you print it only when if it is neither of them, right? So I'll just go here, save this, go here and run the file. Okay, let's go to the output, and it removed all these things, right? Now to better understand this, I want to show you guys it in a debug mode. Okay, I'll put a breakpoint here and I'll run it in a debug mode. Okay, see, we go to the locals, right? So we have input, we have Mukesh, Daniel. In the string array, if I go to my locals, in the string array, you got all these data, right? Which you see here. 31 string, Mukesh, then space, 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 right? So what would have happened? First, it will get the current item. In the current item, you can see it is Mukesh. So I do a step into, and it says that, hey, it is not null or it is white space. So it says print the item. So that's why in the output, it will print Mukesh. Now, when it went to the next time, it has now space. Current item, if I go to step into now, the current item is now a space. So this condition will become true, and it will go to the then part, and we have nothing, so it will ignore, right? That's how it is working for all these items, and wherever this condition is becoming false, it then only it is going into that loop, right? This was just to show that, hey, we have a lot of other functions, other methods which are available in the string functions. Okay, so we have seen the true array and all, right? Now we have seen the replace. There are a lot of other methods which are available for the string, right? And for that, you just need to go to the Microsoft website again, right? And you see here, these are all the string methods: clone, compare, compare to, concat, right? Simple one, concat. If I want to compare two string, right? Same like we have split. Now if I want to compare two string, I can use something which is called concat. How does it work? You just use the concat functions, right? So let's say I'll just quickly show that to you. So in the string input, I have this one Mukesh, and in a assign activity, I'll take one more, control K, and I'll say last name, right? So let's say I have first name and last name into two variables, and now if I want to put it into, I'll just call it first name. Okay, so I have string first name and last name into two variables. Now what I want to do is I want to print it together and then put it into an application, right? So let's say this was my use case. I'll remove all of that. Okay, so now I have got two variables, first name and last name. I have to put it into an application by into a single string which is called a full name. So I can go to the activities, take assign activity, go here and I'll say that str underscore full name, right? Now, how do I do that? So I can use something which is called string dot concat. Okay, so if you see, it's a function concat, and then it is telling me give all the strings which you want to concat. So what is the first string? The first string is first name. Then it says put a comma. What do you want to put after that? I want to put the last name. So str, what is the last name? Okay, I just put last name or what? Yeah, last name, right? Save this. This would be in the full name. Now I'll go to the activities and I'll use a right line activity, drag and drop it here, and I'll just put the full name. Okay. It can be any scenario where you want to merge the data from two different string, two different characters and club them together, right? I'll just go run this. In the output, it's together, right? I want a space. Can anybody tell me how can I put a space? So if you see the output here, it is not having a space between my name, right? How do I put a space? What comes to your mind? I'll give you a hint. Here, we need to do something. So we are telling concatenate Mukesh and this. Did we instructed it to put a comma? No, right? To put a space, right? So I say after the first name, put a space because this is a string and space is also a string. So I say that concatenate these three things now. First name, space, and the last name. You want to put something else? Put something else here, right? Let's say I want to put a full stop after this. So now it will concatenate 1, 2, 3, 4 items together. Save this. Go here and say run the file. Okay, opposite of split is the concatenate, right? Output Mukesh space Kala and then the dot, right? As simple as that, right? So this was the concat method, right? So similarly, I might have a little more experience because I have seen this, but if you just go to Google, search it, you will get it, right? See, null or empty, null or white space, then you have the replace, start with, end with, substring. If you want to get something out of a string, you can use the substring, right? All these functions are available for you. The only thing you should know is how do I utilize it, and the best way is just to read this documentation, understand this, and see what is that as which is coming after it, right? This, right? String.concat. Okay, the only thing you guys should know, how do you read this syntax, right? Concat, pass the string 0 as string, first string, put a comma, pass the second string, pass the third string, output would be as string, right? If I was doing something for length, I would use dot length, right? How do I know it will give a count? It says that as string. It says that I am going to give you as string. That's why it's as length, and that's why it is giving you integer. And since this is integer, you have to use an integer variable, right? So all these concepts work together for you in the string, right? So this was a quick on the string functions. Lastly, I want to show one more interesting stuff which might work sometime, which might not work sometime, is the introduction of chat GPT into the string activities, right? If you go here, let's say here you see describe your expressions. I have the first name in the Mukesh and the last name in this one. I want to club both of them into this one which is called the full name, right? You can write the expression here. This is the chat GPT, I would say open AI kind of thing, generative AI embedded in UiPath Studio. Here you just say combine first name and last name into a new string, and I say send it, right? I don't know whether this would work or not, but let's see. See, string dot concat first name space last name. I didn't write this. This came automatically, right? It's correct, right? If you write the prompt correct, you will get it, right? Let's try to something else, right? uh, make the first name in lowercase, right? Now you guys can validate, right, whether it is giving correct output or not. I just go here and I say send it, and see, dot to lower, right? The same functions which we learned about, right? ChatGPT is helping you, but as a developer, you should also have the capability to validate, right? Now, since you have understood all these things, you are able to validate, yes, to lower is a correct function, right? Let's try something else. Count the number of, okay, so let me try it like this. Give the length of first name, right? And see, dot length dot to string, whatever I was explaining to you, ChatGPT has given me, right? But now you would be able to understand it, and you can write it here, right? You might not get it in your company client, but if you're using the latest version, try to get yourself this, treat yourself with these features of UiPath, right? So this was the string manipulation, right? Now you might be thinking, right, why don't you start from here? Why don't you start teaching directly from here and not this, right? Because if I would have shown you, then you would never understand the syntaxes, right? So the idea here is, first we need to know the basics, string manipulations, everything. Then you can go to internet, chat GPT here, there, and get the syntax, copy paste it and use it, right? So that was about the string manipulation. Okay, so that is all for this video. I would like to wrap this video here. I hope this was insightful. If you have any more questions, any more doubts, feel free to write me in the comments, or you can also drop me an email as well. I would appreciate your feedback on the video, and tell me in the comments what would be the next topic or next video you want to see. So with that, I would wrap this video here. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do subscribe to the channel, and happy automation.